when you're that person who can move your focus off of yourself and place it on serving others, discovering their needs, their wants, their desires, moving off yourself and making it about helping others solve their problems and challenges, when you can take it off of yourself and make it about moving others toward happiness, people feel good about you. They feel great about you. They want to get to know you. They like you. They trust you. They want to be in relationship with you. They want to do business with you. They want to tell others about you. They want to be your personal walking ambassador. Yeah. So it really does work out that when you can make it about others.
But you got to mean it, right, Bob? You can't do it. You can't fake it in the hopes that there will be a return on the back end, right? I mean, it's got to be genuine.
Welcome to the podcast dedicated to real estate, insurance, and building your business. Join us as we take you along our own business building journeys with additional wisdom from our network of local and national experts. Welcome to Bricks and Risk. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Bricks and Risk. I'm Tim Garrity.
And I'm Sean Mooney.
And today, Mr. Mooney, we have an incredible guest.
Yes, we do.
Bob Burg, speaker, author, and business authority. How you doing today, Bob?
Doing great, guys. Thanks for having me with you.
Thanks for coming in. Thank you for coming on. So for those who are unfamiliar, Bob is an author. He wrote Endless Referrals in 1994. Fantastic book. He also co-authored The Go-Giver, wrote with John David Mann in 2007. It sold over 1.25 million copies. Wall Street Journal bestseller, rated number 10 on Inc. magazine's list of most motivational books ever written, which is unbelievable. Co-author of Streetwise to Saleswise, Become Objection Proof and Beat the Sales Blues. He wrote that with Jeff C. West in 2024, so that's recent. And as far as speaking, Bob has been a speaker for 30 years. He's helped entrepreneurs, sales professionals create powerful relationships, effectively communicate their value, and sell on high value rather than on low price. He's a Hall of Fame keynote speaker on referrals, relationship building, and genuine influence, and has spoken in front of groups with over 15,000 attendees, which is just unbelievable. Some of the personal stuff about Bob. Bob's focus is really on shifting it from giving to getting, which is what we're really going to talk about today. He's an advocate, supporter, and defender of free enterprise system, believing that the amount of money one makes is directly proportional to how many people they serve. He's an unapologetic animal fanatic, serves as part of a South Florida rescue, foster, and adoption organization. He went to North Adams State College in North Adams, Massachusetts, and you were an English major. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I still have no idea what a split participle participant gerund whatever is.
Just like Mr. Mooney over here. He was an English guy.
Yeah.
All right, so first question for you, Bob. So you had mentioned in a past podcast that you were born to great parents, and they focused on a giving first philosophy. So I'd really like to just hear about your folks. Can we learn a little bit about them, if you don't mind?
Sure. And I don't even know if it was necessarily giving first. It was just, they were just very giving people. So, it was just, I got to have a great example growing up of people who just did their best to be really good people, very entrepreneurial in nature. My dad grew up, just very, very poor in the immigrant slum Americana type of thing. My mom, not as much, but, certainly, but they, built a nice business for themselves, and they always did it through service and through serving others. And they loved each other amazingly, and they loved their family. And it was just, a great example.
That's awesome. Did you have any siblings, or were you an only?
No, older brother, younger sister.
Okay, so one of three.
Bob, when you talk about that, it sounds like there's a direct correlation with your upbringing, seeing them, and then, with the book, The Go-Giver. I mean, is that a direct parallel or something you base it off of, or something else?
Yeah, I mean, I think we live what we learn, and what we observe, or we learn what we live. I'm not sure which is the best way to say that, but my co-author, John David Mann, also had great parents too. So, there's really something there. But also, as you grow up and you get older, you see other people doing things in different ways, in certain ways, some that are certainly not congruent with the values maybe you were taught, but
Mhm.
and you see people having different results, and sometimes you see people who do things in a yucky way that have some success, and you see people doing things in what seems to be a good way who don't. Other times you see people who do good things and are very successful, and other times you see people who act lousy, and that's the results they receive. And you think, well, is there any real correlation to anything? And there is, because I noticed patterns, I observed, and what I saw is that by and large, the people who were what I call sustainably successful, and not just financially, but financially also,
Yeah.
Yeah.
financially, personally, emotionally, relationally. These are people who all had that desire to make other people's lives better. These are people who were givers, not in a self-sacrificial way, not at all. It had nothing to do with that. But it was always in a way that seemed to have a focus on adding value to the world, adding value to people around them. And those are the people who, to me, were always the most sustainably successful. But it makes sense when you think about it. It's actually very logical. There's
Yeah.
nothing, there's nothing. And again, and you mentioned when we talk about the premise of the go-giver, that shifting your focus, this is really where it begins.
Yeah.
Shifting your focus from getting to giving. Giving in this context simply meaning constantly and consistently providing immense value to others. Not only is it a more fulfilling way of living life and conducting business, it's the most financially profitable way as well. Not for any woo-woo, way out there, magical, mystical reasons. Oh, just give and good things will happen. That's magical thinking. No,
Yeah.
it's actually much more logical than that. It's much more rational. When you're that person, who can move your focus off of yourself and place it on serving others, discovering their needs, their wants, their desires, moving off yourself and making it about helping others solve their problems and challenges. When you can take it off of yourself and make it about moving others toward happiness, people feel good about you. They feel great about you. They want to get to know you. They like you. They trust you. They want to be in relationship with you. They want to do business with you. They want to tell others about you. They want to be your personal walking ambassador.
Yeah.
So it really does work out that when you can make it about others.
But you got to mean it, right, Bob? You can't do it. You can't fake
True.
it in the hopes that there will be a return on the back end, right? I mean, it's got to be genuine.
Yeah, and when it's not, I mean, I think you can sometimes, certain people can have some success, but it very rarely is it sustainable.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, I would agree. So I heard on one podcast you were on, I've listened to a few of your podcasts. I've listened to the Go Giver podcast as well, that in one of your jobs, there was an older gentleman who worked with you and was really the one you were having like a bad month or a slump. I'm probably refreshing your memory. And
No, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
Right
he
on.
had said, your focus shouldn't be on your slump, but also serving others, and that the money will be more of a reward from serving others. Focus on that target and you'll get to where you want to go. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I had moved to another company, and I started out in a slump and stayed in that slump. And I was, and I had been a good salesperson the first couple of years in my business. After the first few months, I had stumbled because I had no sales training, no experience, and the company I was with, I guess, didn't either. Right?
Yeah.
Their training was pretty much go out and sell.
Right.
Oh, here's a phone book.
Okay.
And so, exactly. Hey, nice to see you. Love you all. And so, that didn't work for me. So fortunately, I, found there were actually books on selling and all these great things. So I started studying it, doing really well. But then I moved to another company and got, like I said, started in a slump. And I made a young salesperson's mistake. And that is trying to work my way out of the slump by focusing on the slump,
Right.
really focusing on myself instead of making it about my my customers. And there was an older gentleman at the company. He was not in the sales department. I think he was an engineer or something. And he soon retired. I didn't know him very well, but he was one of these people, nice guy. But yeah, he was he didn't say much, but whenever he did, it was usually something profound.
Yeah,
right.
we know people like that.
Sure do.
Yeah. And I think he saw me sort of as a Joe who I would write about with John David Mann 20 years later or 25 years later, whatever it was. This is a long time ago. And he said, Burg, he was a last name kind of guy. He said, Burg, can I give you some advice? And I said, yeah, please do. I need it. And he said, if you want to make a lot of money in sales, he said, don't have making money as your target. Your target is serving others. Now, when you hit the target, he said, you'll get a reward. And that reward will come in the form of money. And you can do with that choose. But never forget, the money is simply the reward for hitting the target. It's not the target itself. And what that really said to me was that great salesmanship is really never about the salesperson.
Correct.
Great salesmanship is never about the product or service, as important as those are. That's never what it's actually about. Great salesmanship is about the other person. It's about that person whose life you're trying to add value to, or we might even say more accurately, it's about that person whose life is better just because you are part of it. And I think that when we come at sales from that foundational premise, now we're really 9 steps ahead of the game in a 10-step game.
Yeah. I was going to say something real quick. So this is a real estate and insurance focused podcast. That's kind of like who our target audience is. And this is very relevant to me in real estate because in real estate, you only get paid if a deal closes. So if someone says, hey, I want to buy a house, and we get under contract and they inspect it and it doesn't work out, and that takes hours and hours of time, you get absolutely nothing. And I think that's why a lot of people get in and out of this business. They're just like, it's just too hard. I'm not making any money. I don't get it. I always had kind of the philosophy that you have, like, I just want to get my client to where they're trying to go. I don't care if it takes all the time in the world. I don't care if it takes my weekends and weeknights. I'm just going to get it done. And I've had multiple times where deals have fallen through. I've had some where people have lost on multiple homes, 5 homes, 6 homes, where they make offers. And there's work done every single time that someone makes an offer. And I ran a brokerage for like 10 years. So for me, one of the things I always taught people was like, you can't count your commission dollars as soon as the client signs the agreement, because the only way you're going to make any commission is when the deal actually closes. And the hard part is not getting it under contract. The hard part is seeing it through to closing. And that's where the therapy comes in. That's where the weeknights come in. That's where the overworking and everything you're saying right now, especially with the advice that you got, is just so relevant to me in that sense, because this is what I do for a living, and it's constantly like that.
Well, I think even one step further, Bob, and we've talked about it on the podcast, is like, why did we start this podcast? It was really at its core to help other people. I mean, if we boil it down, we want to help people and help business owners grow. And we have guests in, and we want them to share their stories and get the exposure. And so I think that a lot of what you say does resonate with both of us on the business, in our business worlds, but also even with this podcast, we want to have people on like you that can share your story and share your successes and help other people in ways that they can grow.
Well, thank you. And, I love what y'all are doing. And, I mean, it's really a matter of we all kind of add to each other and build a bigger pie, right? There's nothing magical about that. It's just, if it's congruent with your values to do that, it's going to be very, then it's going to be very natural. For some people, it's not as much so, and they need to learn why it's actually in their best interest to be a person who cares about the interests of the other person.
And in this story, one of the snippets in the Go Giver, I remember he's on the phone and he's talking to the attorney. He loses the deal, and he goes, "Oh, but by the way," pulls out the Rolodex. He says, "But this person may be able to help you." So he didn't get the deal, but he's willing to try to provide that value, even as a competitor.
Right. What a good story.
But he realizes that, like, hey, if I can provide value to other people in the long term, I'm going to win. And that's what I've always said. We've said it before, is I live by this 51-49 philosophy, which is in every deal that you're in with life, always give 51% and you receive back 49. But there's a karma effect to that, in that the other party will, want to at some point deliver back on that.
Reciprocate.
Yeah. And I think that's true in life. And I think that your book, speaks to that 1,000%.
I remember the mortgage lender who told me that about the time she was asked to handle someone's mortgage, and they weren't really equipped based on what they did and what the circumstances were. So she referred her to a competitor of hers, and the people who she referred to are the people who were the original client. Who she were so happy they told everybody in an organization they belonged to, and this person got something like 32, where it was able to write 32 mortgages based on that referral.
Oh my God.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is, while 32 is a very high number, and that doesn't happen all the time,
Right.
Yeah.
Amazing how often these things happen. The principle of it happens quite a lot. Now, what's interesting is when people read that in the book, they said, so are you saying you should just give away your business?
You're like, easy.
Not
That's
quite.
not what I'm saying.
Not going overboard here.
Right.
But what we're saying is, if you are not able to serve that person, then sure, find out again and provide value to everyone you can. So again, there's nothing self-sacrificial about being a go-giver.
Yeah.
Well, even with that, Bob, is I have done that where it's not a exact fit for our agency.
Yeah. Yep.
So I've sent them and hooked them up with a friend that might specialize in that, and I've actually gotten referrals back from that person that I didn't even that do the business
You didn't even
with.
do the deal with them. Yep.
But they were like, oh, Sean did an unbelievable job hooking me up with it. And it winds up turning into business. And I think that's one of the fruitful outcomes of having that mindset.
Yeah, we have an interesting, John David Mann and I speak about an interesting concept in the follow-up book to The Go-Giver, Go-Givers Sell More. We call this the law of left field. And this is when something happens where, you receive a referral. Let's say, for example, somebody calls you and says they want you to list their property. And they tell you where the property is, and this is a luxury home, right? This is a good property.
Yeah.
And of course, you ask them, who would referred them, and they tell you who it was, and the person said, oh, and this is the only realtor you need to talk to. You don't need to interview anyone else. The company's great. He or she is great, and they'll take wonderful care of you, and blah, 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 and they sing all your praises. But here's the interesting thing. When they tell you the name of the person who referred you, you don't know who they are. You don't recognize them.
I literally had that come into my office this morning. We have a website. We have a form. They fill it out. We always ask, how did you get to us?
Yeah.
And literally listed a name. So it said referred by, and I'm like, no, they're not a client. I've never spoken to this person. I don't even know.
Oh, that's cool.
And to your point, that happened this morning.
Well, what happened is we think, well, this just came right out of left field, out of nowhere.
Yeah, left field.
Out of nowhere. Yeah, it didn't come out of nowhere, though.
Yeah.
It came from the relationships you've built with so many people. It's the goodwill, the great will you provided. So many people now know you, like you, trust you, want to be part of your life, want to tell the world about you, that the world has become what John and I call a benevolent context.
Yeah, I was going to get to that. I love that you're saying this now.
Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, everyone. This is Tim, your favorite Bricks and Risk co-host. But don't tell Sean. I hope you're enjoying this episode, and I'll get right back to it in a moment. Our audience grows through word of mouth, so if you would please take a moment of your time and give us a review on the platform you're on, that would be fantastic. Please also help spread the B&R word by sharing your favorite episode with a friend. We greatly appreciate your time and trust. Now, back to the show. Cool. All right. So I want to talk about something in The Go-Giver that really hit home with me. It's, I believe there are 5 laws. And the law that always stuck out to me was the law of influence, and basically saying, making your win all about the other person's win. Can you talk about that law a little bit for those who have not read the book?
Yeah, so this is one of those that it sounds counterintuitive, sounds counterproductive, and maybe even Pollyanna-ish, right? Because we
Yeah.
say the law of influence is your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first. Okay. Now, again, counterintuitive sounding, but then you think about it. The greatest leaders you know, the top influencers, the most sustainably successful, highest money earning people you know. This is simply how they run their lives and conduct their businesses.
Yeah.
They're always looking out for that other person's interest. Now, again, just to clarify, when we say place the other person's interest first, we don't mean you should be anyone's doormat. We don't mean you should be a martyr. We don't mean you should be self-sacrificial in any way, shape, or form. Absolutely not. It simply as Joe, the protege in the story, learned from several of the mentors. And as we talked about a little bit earlier, touched upon, the golden rule of business, the golden rule of sales is that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. And there's no faster, more powerful, more effective way to elicit those feelings toward you in others than by genuinely and authentically moving from that I focus or me focus to that other focus. Or as Sam, one of the mentors in the story, advised Joe, make your win all about the other person's win.
I love that.
I saw online the other day, someone posted, said, how to be a great leader. And they said, when you get a victory, make it about your team. When you have a loss, the leader takes all of the ill will with that loss.
You want to get on a stage with Bobby? Is that what we're going? Is that what we're getting to, Sean?
I'm just
You
sharing.
You
what I've
auditioning right now?
seen.
Oh, he's good. He's doing well.
He's doing a great job.
I'm just sharing what I've seen, and it's true. It's like when you're a leader and you have a win, make it about other people, right?
Sure.
And it's same with your clients. It's
Yeah.
like when you get the deal done, it's not about you and
No.
you winning that deal and you making
at
this
all.
commission. It's about your clients just got the home of their dreams,
Yeah.
and the spotlight should be on them.
Well, and when you do it right in any sense, whether it's real estate, insurance, or business, you're inspirational. You help lots of people, Bob. When you see the genuine reaction on someone's face, when you truly help them, you have literally put all of their interests ahead of yours the entire time. Whether you work with them for a week or you work with them for 6 months, it doesn't matter. But that moment where it finally gets to where it was going to go, and looking at someone like in their eyes, and they're just looking at you, they're like, thank you so much for everything that you did. It's literally like the most rewarding thing, not only in life, I mean, but business especially, because business is super cutthroat. I mean, it's cutthroat in your industry. It's cutthroat in mine. And so many people in real estate, I feel like the failure rate is very high because people are so focused on dollars and cents. That's why I feel like most people eventually either get burnt out or they'll leave because they feel like they're not getting paid for their time. But this is a business, I feel like if you're truly passionate about it and you love it, it really is about seeing someone, like if someone's about to get married or have a kid, or they just want more space for them and their dog, like this is one of the greatest moments of their life because they envision what they want and you're the one who's supposed to help them get there. The problem with real estate, it's super painful. It's very emotional. Like you can lose, like there's lots of money at stake. Like people step on each other's necks. Like, unfortunately, it's just the way it goes. But if you can make it as smooth as possible and set expectations and really just focus on them, understanding the process, and then having them actually get to that point and they're like, man, thank you so much for that. Like, I just don't think there's anything better. It's great. I love living this way.
Well, it's like what Bob said is like having the target being about your client's life getting better and winning for them. If the target is just how much money am I going to make off of this transaction, you're going to have a short-lived career probably.
Well, again, there's a logical reason for it too. And I used to say this whenever I spoke at sales conferences. one of the first things I'd say is nobody's going to buy from you because you have a quota to meet.
Right.
True.
They're not going to buy from you because you need the money. And they're not going to buy from you just because you're a really nice human being. They're going to buy from you because they believe that ultimately they'll be better off by doing so than by not doing so. So again, you just look at it logically. Are you more likely to have this sale occur because you're focused on yourself and the money,
Yeah.
which they don't care about in terms of what the money, or are you much more likely to have this happen because they know that you have their best interest at heart, that you're discovering their needs, their wants, their desires, that you want to make their life better? So again, it's very logical, and people sometimes want to make this about some meta type of thing. It really isn't. I mean,
No.
it's just
Bob,
Yeah.
it seems simple to us, right? Like it seems like, oh, well, this is the way that everybody should do it.
Because we're on the same page with this stuff.
Can you talk though? I mean, you've been in sales forever. You do sales training, sales conventions, speaking a lot. I mean, can you talk a little bit about trying to convince people that this is the way it should be, and maybe some pushback that you've seen over the years about people maybe objecting to that way of conducting sales?
Well, so first, I would never try to convince anyone of anything, just like I would never try to convince a prospect that they're wrong, because as Dale Carnegie told us, person convinced against their will is of the same opinion still. And we talk about objections,
It's a good quote.
So and convince the old Latin root of convince is convincere, which meant to conquer. And I don't know about you all, but I've never met a prospect who wanted to be conquered.
Right. Please.
Yeah.
Person. Tell me the error of my ways, so I can change. Whatever you want to.
Awesome. This brings me to another point I wanted to talk to you about, because you've spoken about this before. Talk about the difference between price and value and why that is important when you're running your business, because sometimes people get stuck on price.
Yeah, well, price is a dollar figure.
Yep.
It's dollar amount. It's finite. It simply is what it is. Value, on the other hand, is the relative worth or desirability of a thing, of something, to the end user or beholder. In other words, what is it about this thing, this product, service, concept, idea, what have you, that brings so much worth to another human being that they will willingly exchange their, in this case, money for this value, and be ecstatic that they did, while you make a very healthy profit. So in any, one of my old heroes, Harry Brown, used to say, in any free market-based exchange, and when I say free market, I simply mean no one is forced to do business with anyone else. People do so on their own volition. In any free market-based exchange, there should always be two profits, the buyer profits and the seller profits, because each comes away significantly better off afterwards than they were beforehand. So when you make it about the value rather than the price, you're much more likely to have that happen. It's also why, if you're doing it correctly, you should not be the low price competitor.
Right.
You should be the value competitor. When you sell on low price, you're a commodity. When you sell on high value, you're a resource. And let me go back for a quick second, if I may.
Yes.
About the person who doesn't, recognize this as a let's say a better way of doing business. And I said I wouldn't try to convince them, but I would still attempt to persuade them.
Yep.
And the way I would do it, and the way I'd suggest anyone doing it who wants to help another person see why, let's say, doing it the go-giver way, which again simply means a focus on the other person, right? Why that would be beneficial. And first, this is where the relationship comes into play. Because if you don't have a know, like, and trust relationship with this person you're trying to help, they're probably not going to be open to your idea.
Agreed.
We also need to be able to do it with tact, right? Tact, what my dad always called the language of strength. Tact, really a way of presenting an idea to someone that they normally would not be open to, but doing it in such a way that not only are they not defensive toward you and resistant to the idea, but they're open to you and open to your idea. And so what I would do is approach this person and let them know first what I like, what I admire about the way they do business in terms of their hard work, their ethic, their learning the business, so forth. And would you mind if I shared a thought with you that has helped me that may or may not be something you're interested in considering as well? So again, you're not painting them into a corner, you're giving them the autonomy.
Yeah.
And they say, yeah, sure. And now you can go into, an example that I often use. And that is, let's say I'm the salesperson and you're the prospect, and we're having a sales conversation. And I really need the money. So forget about this go-getter stuff. But I need the money.
You're like,
right?
yo, I got some rent I got to pay.
Exactly. Right. Got to put spaghetti on the table tonight. So I'm going to my goal is to basically just get your money.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I'm going to ask you some questions because that's what I've been trained to do, but I'm not really listening because I care about the answer. I'm more trying to just look for a way to sharp angle you into a close. So I'm not listening really well. When you have an objection, I'm a little bit defensive because your objection is getting in the way of my money, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just going to probably give you the standard answer to the objection, try to ignore it, try to just put aside. I'm going to be closing often because, again, that's what I've been taught, always be closing. You got to be just closing. Now, at the end of this conversation, the sales conversation, as the prospect, are you more likely or less likely to buy from me right now? And the person will probably say less likely, but if they kind of hesitate, you say probably less likely, right? That's most people that say, yeah, I guess so. Okay, now let's say same thing. I still need the money, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to recognize that this other person doesn't care that I need the money.
Yeah.
And what I'm going to do is not deny myself interest because I'm never going to deny truth. Okay. But what I am going to do is suspend my self-interest. I'm going to put it to the side.
That's a really good way to put it.
Yeah. And I'm going to focus on making this about you and providing the best value for you I possibly can. So I'm going to ask you questions and I'm going to listen because I really want to understand what you need, what you want, what you desire. I want to know what problems you have that need to be solved. I want to know how to make your life better. And even when you answer, I'm not going to assume I know exactly what you mean based on what I understand, because we know that we come from different sets of beliefs. So I'm going to tactfully ask you and invite you to explain further. And I'm going to dig deeper till I know that I really understand.
Yeah.
Only when I'm sure I know what you need, want, and desire am I going to then connect the benefits of what I do with those needs, wants, and desires. When you have an objection, rather than try to overcome them, what I'm instead going to do is I'm going to work with you in getting to the heart, the actual root of that objection. And then together, we're going to partner and work through it in order to advance the sales process.
I love it.
And by the time I ask you to take action, I'm simply asking you to make a decision to do what you've already told me you want to do. But more than anything, you know, and you know that I have your well-being at heart. Are you more likely or less likely to buy from me right now? And of course, it's more likely. And so the best thing you can do, aside from all the other great things you're doing in the business, is look for ways to totally, constantly, consistently focus on the value you are providing that other person. Now, what will happen is if this person is ready to make a change, they'll do it. Here's what they'll do. At first, they're doing it even just because it's in their self-interest to be interested in others and blah, blah, blah. But what's going to happen is first, they're going to be a lot more successful, but they're also going to start loving this process. And they're going to become that person that they're trying to be.
So good.
That's poetic, Bob.
Unbelievable. Oh, I love it.
That was awesome.
All right. Well, we know you have a tight schedule. So what we're going to do is, why don't you tell the audience real quick the best way to kind of learn more about you and what you got going on?
Sure. They can connect with me at Burg, BURG.com. While they're there, they can subscribe to my daily impact email that I send out Monday through Friday. And they can look into our SalesWise Live Sales Mastery that we hold in West Palm Beach, Florida at the beautiful Ben Hotel. I do that with Jeff West, who I believe you had on as a guest.
We did. Yeah, that was part of the reason how we met. So thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, exactly. So it's been a pleasure being
When
with
is
you guys.
that? Bob, when is that event?
Yeah.
Just to let people know.
Yeah, it's in September, and I think it is September. And as I'm doing this and talking, what I'm really doing is
You're like, let me open up my calendar.
West Palm Beach, September. Yeah.
the thing right here.
And who is that? Who is it open to? Is it anybody that's looking for sales training, or can you talk a little bit about who that might be a good fit for?
Yeah, and by the way, so we have a really nice, wonderful buffet dinner on the evening of Sunday, September 22nd, and it's all day, the 23rd and the 24th. Our special guest is Richard Wildman, who is who is absolutely a legend in the customer experience space.
Yeah.
So we're excited about that. Yeah, basically it's for entrepreneurs and salespeople, but it's really for those who are already successful and are looking to take their career, their business, their sales to the next level of success. So you'll also at the event meet a whole lot of other go-givers who are looking to bring value, and the connections there are phenomenal. But really, it's 2 days of just really enlightening.
I've been deep into it.
So good. Oh, thank you so much, Bob. And
Really appreciate it.
that's all we have for this episode, folks. So thank you for tuning in again to another episode of Bricks and Risk. See you soon. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Bricks and Risk. Our goal is that you walk away with 1 or 2 valuable nuggets, and we greatly appreciate you sharing your time with us today. You can find all B&R episodes on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, and anywhere else you get your podcast content. Until next time, keep learning and keep growing.